Good morning. Welcome here this morning. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about the British Columbia CARMA-CHIWOS collaboration. We're very proud to show you what we've done so far. I'd like to gratefully acknowledge that our work takes place on the unceded ancestral lands and waters, traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish nations. And we'd like to acknowledge all the ancestral, unceded, and traditional territories across Turtle Island on which we all live, work, and play. So what is BCC3? So BCC3 is really a marriage of the best of CARMA and the best of CHIWOS. Mona, I hope that's okay with you. CARMA is the Children and Women Antiretroviral Therapy and Markers of Aging study, which Hélène led and got 2 team grants on with a large team. And it really looked at biochemical and clinical aging and the perspectives of aging from those standpoints. The CHIWOS study, led by Mona, Angela, and Alexandra, it's a Canadian HIV women's sexual and reproductive health cohort study, and its major focus and strength was the social, structural, and community-based components that it brought to the table. And so what we're trying to do with BCC3 is to take the best of both of those and put them all together to really get a holistic view of aging in women living with and without HIV. Okay. So, so often in research, we either look at one or we look at the other. But I think that the interplay of all of those things, so the social, structural, and psychosocial factors really play a role in aging. But if we don't look at also the clinical, hormonal, and cellular changes, we look at chronic viruses, all these other things that go into what makes a person age well or not, then we're missing something, right? And so our study looks at it holistically. We're looking at all those facets. So a BCC3 study visit consists of 2 parts. The first part is a clinical visit that happens with a research assistant. And there we take some body measurements. Okay, we take some blood and other biological samples for testing, clinical testing, as well as some testing in the lab. That includes chronic viruses, telomeres, mitochondrial DNA, and other things. Hormones, yes, hormones. And then we take a medical history, medications, reproductive health history, et cetera. And that is all done in the clinical visit. And then within about 1 month's time, a community research associate, who is a team member from the community working with us, who's had special training in conducting these research visits, does the second part of the survey, and that contains all the psychosocial structural factors that we want to look at. Our recruitment targets and updates. So we're trying to recruit 350 women living with HIV and 350 negative controls. They have to be at least 16 years of age or older. They can be a cis or a transgender woman. They have to be able to provide consent in English and attend an in-person visit. It doesn't have to all be in our clinic because we're doing some outreach there. Those women who are currently breastfeeding or pregnant are invited to return at a later time to do the survey when they're 6 months after doing that, so that hormones have regulated again. And we're really striving to recruit a sample that's representative of women living with HIV in British Columbia and trying to match those groups. So far we've recruited 442 of our 700 women, just over half of those living with HIV and almost 3/4 of our controls. And these are our age and ethnicity distributions. Because there are differences with age and with ethnic groups, we're trying to match them as well as we can. The tall bar is 2 decades, so it's not that there's so many more, it just includes 2 decades. And those targets that we need to focus on right now are youth living with HIV from 16 to 49, older women, so 65 and older, as well as African, Caribbean, and Black women. And one of the things that our community research associates said to us early on in our study was that, we're really recruiting at Oaktree Clinic. It's really centric to British Columbia's Vancouver Lower Mainland. And what's happening about the rest? You're not sampling, you're not looking at people outside of Lower Mainland. Shame on you. And so we came to the CTN and we asked if we could have some additional funding to go and recruit women outside of the Lower Mainland. And so thus far, we've conducted one recruitment drive in Prince George, where one of our students and one of our research coordinators went to Prince George and spent 2 weeks there, and they recruited 28 women from Prince George into the study. We have recruitment drives planned for Victoria, Surrey, and the Okanagan as well. Those are coming in the next few months. And the other thing that we're doing when we do those recruitment drives is we're doing a knowledge translation event with participants to feedback knowledge to them, but also to ask them what they need for future studies, what their priorities are, and then we're trying to address those things as we've moved forward. And in the bottom right corner is some art that was done with one of the KT event participants from the Prince George study, the Prince George event, I believe, on what women's health meant to the participants.
Thank you, Mel. I'm going to take over from here and lower the microphone. So in terms of knowledge translation, what we've done so far while waiting for our BCC3 data is publish our protocol in BMJ Open last year, as well as several reviews and paper based on either CARMA and or CHIWOS data so far. So we have, I think, 7 published, 2 submitted, and 3 are in the late stage of preparation. And expect the first BCC3 database publication in 2023, which will be based on some of the 20-some abstracts that we have already presented at national and international conferences. And those are shown here.
It's not the updated slides.
No.
We have 4 oral.
Yeah, sorry, we had updated our slides, but it doesn't seem to have made it. So in addition to some of the other knowledge translation and media highlights that you can see here, I want to point out that the 3 BCC3 PI are currently co-editing a special edition for the journal Viruses on HIV, aging, and comorbidities. And we ask that the studies carry their analysis with a sex and or gender-based lens so that even if they are not powered, we can at least visualize male and female or men and women. If you think you have a paper that could fit in there, we are taking submission until the end of December, and we still have a couple of waiver fees that we can distribute to our best. Knowledge translation has been integral to BCC3, and so we've had several arts-based knowledge events led by a very talented graduate student, Shada Swan. She's had a tea party. She's had, I think, 2 events so far with AIDS Vancouver and ASO based in Vancouver, whereby women are invited to a session where there is a talk by our CRAs. There is an arts event around the topic of the event, a meal, and an exchange of, again, what would be important for the women that should incorporate in our research. As similarly, early on in BCC3, we were contacted by Colleen Price, who lobbied for research on chronic pain in people living with HIV to be incorporated. And so we quickly prepared a survey, and it's now part of our questionnaire. And we participated in an ancillary event at AIS with Colleen and Mike Parson and Darren in Montreal earlier this year in partnership with Realize. And some of the other knowledge translation that is planned, we strive to, in BCC3, when we present our data, to show in women as individual rather than statistics. And so part of the knowledge translation that is coming next year is to give back results to women, like, for example, their cortisol or their risk score for something, or their, we haven't finalized the list because we don't want to cause harm when we give those results back, but individualized results to participants, primarily results that are informed on something that is actionable. This is an example of some of the infographics that we have prepared so that participants can better understand what the study is about, and not only aging and menopause, but more complex things like mitochondria and telomere and immune cells and etc. We have a presence on social media. We strive to be accessible and transparent. So we are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We have a website that I invite you to visit. I'm going to leave this on for a little while. You can also Google BCC3. This website shows who the team are, the goal of the studies, the protocol. It has all our survey. It has all our training manuals for the community research associates, and all our publications. And it also has 2 videos that our trainees have produced that explain what is a BCC3 study visit like and what happens to your specimen once they get to my lab. Our team is made of the 3 PI, an elder, Valerie Nicholson, Elizabeth King, and four CRAs, 3 staff, and 10 trainees so far. And we held bi-weekly meeting of the entire core team. And I think that has been key to our success in recruiting so many women in the time of COVID. We've held 1 retreat, and our CRA have an additional meeting with our staff once a month. And listed at the bottom are all the co-investigators on BCC3. Once we have more data, we'll be calling on them to contribute more. This is our advisory board. Don't expect you to read all this, but just want to mention that we are very fortunate to have a lot of partners that attend our board and give us feedback. We hold a community advisory board once a year around International Women's Day. And we've had valuable input and help and ideas coming from our CAB members. BCC3 has received funding mostly from CIHR, so a total of 3 grants from CIHR, as well as a CTN grant, as well as a pilot. We've also been fortunate to obtain smaller grants from the universities to support some of the additional knowledge translation events that we've held. And this is a list of some of the awards that our trainees hold, and it's a testament to how fantastic a group of trainees we were working with.